Podcast show notes can be a real pain to write, especially when your podcast host needs a different format of text to your website. In this video, I'm going to show you how Markdown makes it really easy to create your show notes and why you should use it. Okay, before we get started, I just want to quickly mention that you can subscribe, of course. Just click the button below. There's also a complimentary podcast, which we're up to episode, I think, 111 at the time of recording this, which is called Not Another Marketing Podcast. There's links in the description for that as well, or just search for it on your podcast player. There's also links in the description to any software and tools and bits and pieces that we talk about during this video, so make sure you check them all out. Right, let's get on with it. Okay, what is Markdown? Well, I'm not going to go into massive amounts of detail. I'll leave a link in the show notes to the official Markdown website, and you can go and spend hours reading through all that. But basically, Markdown is a formatting syntax that makes it really easy to create HTML web content. It's much easier than learning actual HTML, an awful lot easier. Now, Markdown is plain text. It's just text, just bog standard. Open it up in Windows Notepad if you want to, plain text. The files usually end with .md, but .txt would work as well. It's literally just a plain text file, nothing fancy at all. Now, what this means is that it's platform agnostic. You can use these plain text files on any computer, any tablet, a mobile phone. You can take them anywhere. You can also sync them exactly how you want as well. So you can store them on Google Drive or OneDrive. You can put them on a USB stick. You could put them on a CD, a floppy drive from 1985. Put them on whatever you want. They'll just work. They are literally just plain text files. Now, the clever bit that happens is when you use these plain text files with a Markdown editor. And what you're going to be able to do is to literally just select all the text and then copy your text as HTML code. And the Markdown editor tool will do that for you. And this makes it really easy. You can then paste that code into your WordPress website, your podcast host website, wherever you want to put it. You put in some raw HTML code into it and it'll look absolutely fantastic. It just saves messing around with all the different formats like Microsoft Word or Google Docs or too many things going on. This is just plain text which you can copy to HTML. So let's have a look at some of the Markdown tools you can use. There are hundreds, probably thousands of Markdown tools on the internet. Some of them work online, some of them you download, install on your laptop, your iPad, your tablet, whatever, your phone, whatever. There's loads and loads around. I'm only going to mention three, and they're the three Markdown tools that I use myself and I find really, really useful. The first one is called IA Writer. Now, this is a fancy pants one, and it costs a few pounds, a few dollars, a few euros, whatever you trade in. At the moment, it's $29.99 US on the IA Writer website. And it's kind of targeted more at writers than it is at, I don't know, say note-taking or just short, quick little text notes and things. It's more for writers. There's even tools that kind of like highlight nouns and adverbs and things like that, and it's quite a nifty bit of kit. But basically what it does is it gives you the chance to be able to write Markdown files, these .md, .text files. And it does that job really, really well. It also gives you the chance to be able to select all that text and copy it as HTML. So if you want a really fancy pants, really nice, bells and whistles type Markdown editor, have a look at IA Writer. I think it's really good. I use it quite a lot. Another tool that I use is called MarkText, and this is free. This is open source software, and there's a link in the description where you can download it. It works on Windows and Mac, and it's a good bit of kit. It's probably a little bit slower than the other two bits of the software I'm going to talk about, but it does do the job. One thing it does quite nicely is that it hides the actual formatting of Markdown. And we'll come to that in a little bit, and I'll show you how exactly that works. It's more of one of those what you see is what you get editors, where you actually type the Markdown, but it appears how it's going to appear, kind of like as the HTML would appear on a website. It's a nice bit of kit. It's nice software. It's called MarkText. There's a link in the description. Download it. Have a go with it. Now we come to the tool that I use for my show notes, and that's called Typora. It's a bit of software that is currently in beta. When it launches, it'll probably cost money. I don't think it's going to cost a fortune, though, but it will cost some money. It's available on Windows, Mac, and Linux, but it's not available on phones. Okay, it's just on desktop computers. This is a great tool. I like it because, I don't know, it just feels right to me. You might prefer MarkText. You might prefer a writer or something else, but the one that I prefer and I feel more comfortable with is Typora. Again, it works a little bit like MarkText, where it hides the basic Markdown formatting, and it shows you what everything will look like once you've exported it to HTML and it appears on a website. So you get that feel of that kind of what you see is what you get feel. It's a nice tool, nice bit of kit. The links in the description. Download it. It's free. Give it a go. Markdown gives us a lot of formatting options, but to be honest with you, when we're creating show notes for a podcast, then we just need to use the basics. We'll probably need bold, we'll probably need italics, might need some headers like header 1, header 2, header 3, and we'll need some links, most definitely, the links to websites and places and more podcasts, hopefully. And that's how we're going to construct our show notes. Now, you can, with Markdown, create HTML tables and all sorts of different things, but we're not going to look at that. We're just going to look at basic formatting that you'll need for show notes. And I'm going to use Typora to demonstrate how to do this, okay? This is the tool that I use most of the time for my podcasting, and I think it's probably the easiest one out there at the moment on the market. So let's get on with it. Right, so we need some bold text. So let's do some simple Markdown formatting. Bold text, right. So the formatting for bold is 2 stars, okay? Bold text, or whatever text you want to write, and then 2 stars. Okay. Typora is like one of these what you see is what you get editors. So when I hit enter, I just get bold text, as simple as that. If I click on that bold text, it will show me the actual Markdown formatting, which is 2 little stars at the beginning, 2 little stars at the end. Now, it doesn't matter what you write this in. We can use any Markdown editor. We can use a plain text editor, just like Windows Notepad, and we can put 2 stars and some text in the middle, and whatever Markdown editor you use will display it exactly the same way. So that's bold text. Now, you'll probably want some italics as well. So italics, just as simple, but we use 1 star. So italics, 1 star, and we got some italics. How easy is that? You might need some headers. Okay, I've never really used them myself in my show notes, but you might want to use them. So you use the pound symbol, the hashtag, to signify a header, and we can have 6 of them in total. So the first one is header 1, like so. We'll do 2 there, header 2, a little bit smaller, and then header 3, a little bit smaller. And you can go on all the way up to 6, which is really tiny. That's headers done. Really simple. Then we come to links. Links are important in your show notes, okay, because they send people to more podcasts or different places that you've mentioned during your podcast. You know, if you mention a website halfway through your podcast, you might actually want to put the link in the show notes to that website. And links are really simple to do in Markdown. We use square brackets and then parenthesis. And then the word or the phrase that you actually want to link goes in the square bracket. So this is the link text, okay? And then in the brackets goes the actual website address. So if we put, let's put my website. You can always visit it if you want. Lots of podcasts there. Podcasts like so. And that is a link. So we hit enter and Typora shows it just like that as a simple link. And if we click on it, we can then edit it if we want to. When we convert this into HTML, that will be a proper HTML clickable link. And you can put that in your WordPress website or in your show notes with your podcast host, wherever you want. So that's the basics of formatting. That's all you're going to really need to create some podcast show notes. And as you can see with Typora, this just makes everything so much easier, doesn't it? But remember, you can use exactly the same format with whatever Markdown editor you want. If you use IA Writer, for example, which is the fancy pants one, or you use MarkText, or use any of the millions out there, you use exactly the same formatting. And you can take the file, this little text file, from one editor to another editor to another editor, and they'll all open it the same way. Okay, let's have a look and see how this all works in real life. So what I've done is I've brought up in Typora the notes that I make when I'm creating a podcast episode. So I've got the title of the podcast at the top, I've got the recording link, the date I'm going to be recording it, and the guest's name. I then have the bio of the guest, including all their links to their social media bits and pieces. I've got the questions I'm going to ask them. I've then got my scripts, which is an intro scripts and outro scripts and things. And then right at the bottom, I've got my show notes down there. And all of this is written in Markdown. And what I do is I bring these notes into my little recording booth, and I've got them all with me when I record the episode. And then when we put in the episode live, I can create the show notes using Typora, and we can copy them as HTML and paste them into the website. And it's really simple. So here's the show notes. The first little bit, the welcome bit, is just the summary. That's just a little bit of plain text. And then I've got a line which kind of separates it. I don't actually copy that line anywhere else. It's just for me to be able to separate the summary of the episode with the actual show notes itself. So the show notes are underneath. And as you can see, we have a link there. We have a link there. And lots of Twitter and Facebook and Instagram links and pieces. So the show notes are basically built up with a lot of text and a lot of links. And I need to be able to copy this over to my podcast host and also to my website as well, because the show notes are going to appear in both places. But I want to add a little bit more to this. So I'm going to kind of like just add some bold. So 100th episode. Ooh, that's a lot of episodes of the podcast, that is. So we're going to Control B, and that's bold, like so. Can we find anything else to bold? Let's have a quick look. Over 150 times. That's a lot. So we're going to bold that one as well, like so. And that'll do. Okay, we got our show notes done. I've written these show notes in Typora, in Markdown. We can move them from whatever Markdown editor we want to another one, and they'll look exactly the same. And now I'm ready to be able to transfer these show notes to my podcast host and also my website. I use Simplecast for my podcast hosting, and there's a few things I need to add, obviously, before I put a podcast live, like the title of the podcast, which is helpful, the actual audio file, the MP3 file, which I need to upload. But I also need to add an episode summary and the episode notes, which are the show notes. And this is where the information, the show notes that I've created in the Markdown file plays a part. So let's nip back to my Markdown file, and what I'm going to do is copy the summary, which is just at the top here. So we're going to copy that text there. We're going to head back into Simplecast and literally just paste it into the summary box. Dead simple. Then what we want to do is to copy the episode notes, including all the links and the bolds and the things like that. And we're going to use Markdown. So I'm going to click the Markdown button here and edit in Markdown. Ba-bum. Job done. So let's go back to my Markdown page here. We're going to select all of this. Okay. And then I'm going to right click and copy as Markdown. And then go back to Simplecast. and paste it in. Job done. Okay, now you can see there's the 100th episode there, surrounded by 2 little stars for bold. There's the links. So there's the links there, including the square brackets and the round brackets. And when we hit this Markdown button here to come into the visual editor, all the links are there. Just bingo. And that's it. So you literally copy as Markdown, paste it into the Markdown box, and it's done. You don't have to worry about setting all these little formatting bits, creating all the links again, making things bold again. It's all done really quickly. Now, the next thing I need to do is to get my show notes over to my website, which is a WordPress website. But it doesn't really matter what you use for your website. You might use Wix or Squarespace or something else. Okay, it doesn't really matter. All of them are going to need some type of HTML content because it's content for the web. So I'm going to select all of this content here. And in Typora, we go to the Edit menu, and then we select Copy as HTML code. And then I'm going to head over to my website. And this is kind of like just to demonstrate to you how it works in WordPress. So when you're creating a new post for your podcast, new post or a new page or whatever it is, we then literally just paste that HTML text into WordPress and bingo, it's there. We've got the bold, we've got the links, everything is intact. Perfect. Now, to give you an idea on how this looks when it's live, this is the episode from last June, which I actually recorded. So there's the little box for the to play the podcast. There's the summary at the top, which I put in, and there's the show notes underneath, which are all intact with all the links. This makes it so much easier. We've just written this content, these show notes, once in Markdown, and I'll be able to copy it and paste it into Simplecast and paste it into my WordPress website without having to do any formatting. I've not had to mess around with any of these links in particular. Just makes life so much easier and makes sorting out your show notes an awful lot quicker as well. So to finish up, I think Markdown is really good for writing any content for the web. I write my blog posts in Markdown, I write my show notes in Markdown, I write my stream feeders, podcasting newsletter in Markdown because it gives me the chance to be able to copy as plain text, copy as Markdown, or copy as HTML. And all I'm doing is working with text. I'm not working with pictures, so it doesn't need to get too complicated. And the formatting structure is very, very simple. As you can see from what you're looking at now, I've structured this video using Markdown. And any videos I create, I use a Markdown page to actually structure it and plan it. So it's right at the bottom. We have the outro tool. So thanks for watching. Look, if you've enjoyed this video, then make sure you subscribe for more and also check out the complimentary podcast as well. Over 100 episodes of that. Just search for Not Another Marketing Podcast in your favourite podcasting app or check the links in the description as well. Thanks for watching.